Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of FitFam podcast. We're here with Hilary, Miss Natural Olympia.
And Doug, the Formulator.
And we're really excited about today. We're going to go into probably, at least one of the top 3 things we get asked about the most.
For sure.
And the things that we end up working with a lot of clients with, the thousands of doctors around the nation. This is always a topic. Every seminar we give, no matter what the seminar, we end up getting on this subject. It was actually a big deal with professional athletes too that we worked with, especially when I got hired to also work with a team called the Phoenix Mercury, which was the women's WNBA team, and we're actually talking about
Hormones.
And so, this is really interesting because the topic today, we could go so many different directions. You know,
for sure.
But what we wanted to do, Hilary really brought up a good point, and it is that there's this tendency now in America to, once women hit 35, 40, men hit 35, 40, that maybe they're feeling a little bit out of whack. Maybe the guy's not as much drive, and the women just a little bit anxiety and just out of whack, I guess is a good word.
Yeah.
That they look for answers, and the pharmaceutical companies and all of that large group that has a lot of influence in America has jumped on that. And they're like, oh yeah, that's natural, and you should just go on hormones.
Yeah,
and,
everybody, you get to that age and it's hormone replacement time, and it's this normal thing for everybody. When, I don't know, maybe we can create some new normals.
There you go. And what's interesting is the people that do understand what we're going to be talking about today, create the new norm, if you would, have a much healthier life, much more balanced life, longevity. And I think really what we've learned in the last couple of years working with our clients one-on-one around the nation, different areas, is that what a lot of people are searching for is that clarity of mind and not having the brain fog and that has a lot to do with hormonal balance.
Yeah, for sure. And I think something that I did want to touch on is that so often when somebody goes to their doctor or their health professional for help with hormones, they're kind of sold this expectation or sold this story that it's all natural. So this hormone replacement that they're going on is all natural. So I do want to touch on that a lot and kind of explain some of these methods and why they're not natural.
Let's go there. And so I think that the concept, remember, of the FitFam podcast is to try to stick with the fitness acronym a little bit so people can get balance and understand each aspect. And I think for the focused, intense thought portion of hormones, it's really more of an education about what you should be thinking about and what you should be focusing on. Like I said, the norm is, hey, you hit the 30s, especially the 40s, this is what you should do. And so some of the statistics I think is really important. And probably,
you think the statistics are important?
Can you believe it? I know.
Wow.
And one of the main things is that we know that it's not even controversial, is that we have the lowest levels of testosterone for men and women ever since we've been collecting data. In other words, for as long as we've been collecting data, right, this is the lowest levels ever. And so something's up, right?
Right.
It's we definitely know there's a problem there. And what's really interesting is within just the last 15 years, testosterone levels have dropped for men and women over 25%. So we're not only at the lowest, but there's something that's happened, in the last decade or two that's really influenced this drop. And I think it's important to understand, even though we're talking about testosterone, and it might be like, oh, the women are saying, okay, this is the time for the guys to listen. That's not true.
We're going to touch on all of it.
Absolutely. And the majority, it's not every time, okay, but the majority of the problem with women and hormones is actually low testosterone. And a lot of people don't understand that. And hormonal therapies and all the women that you talk to and that come in and talk to us, usually what they're prescribed is testosterone.
Yeah.
And so that's usually the factor. And understand there are some specific cases, estrogen, things like that.
And they're prescribed the testosterone, and it's supposed to be a fix-all, right? So many women come to us and they're like, I was told that I was going to feel amazing, that I was going to have energy like I've never had, that I would think clearer than I've ever thought. And basically they say it was a load of baloney, and maybe the effects did last for a time period, but then the lows were the lowest of lows. And so I think that's something that is avoided when people go to their doctors.
Absolutely. And I think that the key is to understand that knowing your numbers, knowing your data is important. Get your blood work done. For anyone, male or female, that's like, hey, I wonder if my hormones are imbalanced. Best thing is get your blood work done. So to kind of stay on the focus intense thought, let's talk about some of the things that people feel that when we've done the blood work, when we've digged into the data, that it came back to it was testosterone estrogen balance in that. But what are some of the things that people can be listening, say, hey, what are the symptoms?
Well, I think a lot of people, before they come to us and get their blood work done, is for a lot of the women that we've spoken to, the word that keeps coming up is, I've felt crazy, and I'm not that kind of a person. I'm not this crazy hormonal human. And so that gets talked about a lot. Low drive, feeling very exhausted a lot of the time is something that people talk about. So energy levels are really, really low. Depression, anxiety, all of those things.
Yeah, depression and anxiety I think is really big. And we know that with depression and anxiety, we talk a lot about nutrients, and when we do the blood work, that there is this huge factor with vitamin D, that vitamin D is needed to help just keep your happiness level up, and it's a huge factor. And with people with depression, the majority of the time, we're talking high majority, 90% and higher, are low in vitamin D, but the hormone factor is huge when it comes to that. And many times people say, well, is a hormone imbalance cause low vitamin D, or low vitamin D cause a hormone imbalance, which came first? Well, the bottom line is they both need to be worked on. And I think that can kind of lead into, and for the guys, just to kind of finish up what Hilary's talking about, for guys a lot of time, it's sex drive, no doubt, but it can be just drive also. And what I mean by that is, you just don't have the drive that you used to have.
The zest for life.
The zest for life, the aggressiveness, the good aggressiveness that's needed in business and in life, and to be a provider and a protector and for the family, that just drive, and so that's a big factor with it. Also, you're going to find that with lower testosterone, man, it's much easier to get the dad bod. Now, the dad bod usually is a factor of everything, right? You're not eating right, not exercising enough, not getting after it, but the low testosterone can actually be a factor there. I've had a lot of people that were trying to exercise and eat, healthy, and they just weren't getting the results. And once we got their hormones balanced, everything they did worked better, and it motivated them so they could stick with it more and go from there with it.
And that actually made me think of another thing with women, when we see a lot of women, is that the things that they've done in the past to be able to lose weight aren't working anymore. So, the same ways that they've gone about diet, nutrition, exercise, those same things now in their 40s or 50s just aren't cutting it anymore.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that'll be the last point, and we'll get on to the next part of it. But for men with that, and women too, with exercise, that you're like, hey, I used to exercise and I got results quick, and now I exercise, I don't get hardly results, but I get sore, and so heck with it,
Yeah.
And a lot of times it is that hormone balance. So it's a combination of recovery, having the right nutrients to recover. That's really critical. But also the balance is, if your testosterone levels are where they should be, and for women, testosterone, estrogen balance, you recover quicker. And that's one of the great benefits. So we don't get as much pain, and we have that ability to recover. Like, hey, yeah, I'm feeling it, and then go with it. So hormone balance, if you have any of those issues, men, women, guys, get tested. Pretty simple. Easy blood work. You can reach out to us if you want. We have a program that you can do, or just go get your blood work done. And one of the things in the blood work, just to get a little technical, is you want to measure testosterone, obviously, and for women, estrogen. If I actually, many times we don't even have to measure that. There is another thing that's important, and it's called SHBG, and it stands for sex hormone binding globulin. And just think of globulin, right? That's the easiest way to explain it. It's this protein it binds onto testosterone and makes it so that even people that have good levels of testosterone, it's bound up with this protein, so it's not being utilized. You're not getting the full benefit. And we've had women, especially women, it seems like, I was going to say women and men, but women a lot,
mostly women,
that have high SHBG, and we've gone in and added in the right nutrients. In this case, there's a mineral called boron that helps break that bond so that testosterone can be utilized. And you're right, especially for women. But I've seen it a lot in men. One just recently that had decent testosterone but didn't feel it, and we got their nutrients balanced, and all of a sudden everything was great. It's much easier to take a person that has good testosterone but is bound up, unbind it, than to elevate it, although it can be done, and we're really good at it naturally also.
Absolutely. And wouldn't you say a full panel is really important, because you need to look at all of the cofactors involved with hormones, right?
Absolutely. A full panel is super important, and the panel we run is we run the hormones, but also all the nutrients, and I think you're talking a lot about that, right? Vitamin D, zinc, and all those things. And then your basic metabolic panel, your risk of heart disease and diabetes and uric acid levels for arthritis, all that stuff. You need everything. You need the whole gamut. But let's talk about hormones, okay? Now hormones, and we're going to keep this simple for all my friends out there that are deep into the chemistries and doctors. I've been asked to keep it mellow as much as possible on this, so we're just going to skim it a little bit and talk about it and kind of break it down to make it simple. Really just for talking purposes, we have carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Those are our macronutrients. And in order for hormones to be made in the body, right, in order to be created, the body has to use fatty acids. So the fats, once you eat a fat and it's broken down to fatty acids, your body uses those fatty acids as a key macronutrient to be able to make hormones. And that becomes a huge factor, especially with women. And so in the case of Hilary being a professional athlete, or really any lady that diets, we hear that a lot, that there's a problem once they start cutting their calories.
Yeah, the problem is that they are trying to cut calories, so they also reduce their fat intake, which means they're not getting the fatty acids that they need to help produce the hormones that help keep them balanced. So,
yeah, so you ready for tip number one? Super easy one. This is tip number one. Ladies especially, not also with men, but ladies especially, if you have a little bit or a lot of bit of a problem, you think, with hormones and hormone balance, do one thing really quick and you'll know real soon. Increase your fatty acids. Like boom, just do it right now. And how do you do it? Take a good essential fatty acid formula. We're not fans of fish oils, and there's a new research study out on the fish oil showing some heart disease issues with it. And there's a lot of the mercury in that. But you need fatty acids. But borage, flaxseed, huge fan of algae. So any one of those things, a combination's the best. We make some called Optimal EFA. It's a combo. But hey, go down to the store and get some flaxseed, right? Some flaxseed oil, organic. Take a teaspoon a day and get the fatty acid levels up, because a lot of the time, that's what it is. And when women and men, but when women really start to lower their calories, so like, hey, I'm going to go on a diet, I'm start eating healthier, and I'm going to get my calories where they belong. A lot of times, the hormones get crazy.
Right.
And then they're like, and even the husband will say, like, I don't want you living like that. Go, eat again.
Yeah, and I think something important to remember with the whole fat concept is that just as important as it is to get your healthy fats in, is as important as it is to keep the unhealthy fats out, because they make it so that you can't use the healthy fats, right? So that, and also remember things like extra virgin olive oil in their natural state are great, but the second that we cook them, we make it a different kind of oil, and it becomes the reverse. Now it's
more of a trans fat.
Trans fat. So it's important to get your fats in, but know the difference.
Yeah, I'm going to double down on that. That's such a great point. And people don't realize that, well, I do eat healthy fats. I eat more of maybe a Mediterranean diet, right? The olive oils and that, put on their salads and keeping it fresh and everything. But why do I still have problems? And as Hilary said, if you have a cooked processed fat, right, something that's hydrogenated or fried, and you have that bad fat, it'll get in and bind with the good fats and make a lot of them not as available, or actually do their damage on them, because they're oxidative. They oxidize, like something will rust out, metal will rust. The same thing can happen internally. And if you put these oxidizing fats that you've consumed that have that ability to steal electrons, it'll actually turn the good guys bad too. Right. So really good point.
The closer to nature, the better. So,
Absolutely.
and a lot of people think, no, I eat a lot of nuts, so I should be good. Well, it also depends what kind of nuts. If you're getting raw nuts, great. If you're eating roasted, not great. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good point. Close to nature as possible. Good fats. Tip number 1, get better fats in your diet. Cut out the bad fats. And a lot of times that's all people need.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It really is.
What about avocado? Is avocado a replacement for like the flaxseed oil or that kind of thing?
Good question. So we're huge fans of avocados, right? Great fatty acids in them, and recommend having avocado every day, actually, but for different reasons. The flaxseed and borage oil contain more of the EPA, DHA, these fatty acids you really, really need. When the avocado, although they have some good fatty acids in it, is more just essential fats, macronutrient based, and so very good for you, but you do need some of the specific fatty acids that give you these benefits to the brain, the DHA, like you mentioned, the EPA, all of these things. So flaxseed, borage, algae, those types of oils.
Or an essential fatty acid supplement.
Yep, absolutely. And a lot of times that's the way to go, just to ensure, like we try hard to get our fats good. We have a great friend, Eddie Keiko. Sometimes we'll get some really good oil from Greece, right? And things like that. But even with that, we consume a lot of essential fatty acids from supplements because it's critical. And just to, how does that tie in even a little bit more to some of the vitamin deficiencies? Remember, it takes fats to make hormones. We've established that. We need to make sure we have good fats coming in. But there are certain vitamins in the body that can't be assimilated, right? And without fat. Vitamins, do you remember them? A. Yep, the main one. Yep, A, D, E, and K.
Yeah.
Oh, you got it. So vitamins A, D, E, and K are fat soluble. They need fats in order to actually be assimilated and work properly in the body. So if you think about it, if you already have a fatty acid problem and your hormones are off, then you're not going to be able to assimilate vitamins A, D, right, for depression, all that stuff, E and K. And the K is really important too. A lot of people don't realize there's something called K2 that helps pull calcium out that shouldn't be in the bloodstream, that's causing buildup, pull it out, put it back in the bones. And so all these things are really good. Just remember, fat soluble vitamins are very good for you, and that kind of comes around with the hormone balance. We usually will see a problem in testosterones or the estrogens and that balance, and we'll see the same thing with the fat soluble vitamins, right? They usually go hand in hand. People are usually low in those when that happens. So we know the importance of making sure our hormones are balanced. And let's kind of maybe just jump right to the nutrition side, since you brought up avocados. And I think that the key, as you already imagined, is to have a lot of healthy fats in the diet. And a lot of people cut out way too many fats, when the reality is you should have healthy raw fats, and that's probably the only fats you should have. Cut all the other bad stuff out. And I want to talk for a minute, Hilary, that she won't talk about herself much, but maybe she'll talk about her diet, is that, she's competed and been in the Natural Olympia how many years in a row now?
This will be my 8th consecutive year.
8th consecutive year competing in Natural Olympia, and competing a minimum of 4 times a year, up to that, sometimes 6 times. So ongoing.
Sometimes more than 6.
Sometimes more than 6, 7. She competes more than any other natural pro athlete by far. And the thing is that one thing that I heard you kind of, that you're proud of, and I am too, the other day. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I think something that's really cool is most women athletes in bodybuilding will talk about the fact that once they get so lean, they start losing their cycle.
In a lot of sports too.
Yeah, in a lot of sports, for sure. And so in the 8 consecutive years, and years before that we competed and have trained, I've only lost my cycle 1 time. Which tells you that somehow we have been able to manage my hormones even through a very strict low-fat diet that still contained essential fatty acids, obviously, to keep hormones balanced.
Yeah, and it's been very important for Hilary. She understands the importance of keeping her cycle and that cleansing. And for us guys, it's important for them to keep their cycle. I don't want to go crazy on us. And I'm just saying that I think that the keeping the balance is critical for both, the spouse, and it's really an important factor. And I think that being able to do it in the sport that actually asks you to cut the body fat the most is huge. And it does come down to the diet. So let's talk about the diet for a minute. Let's help people understand where they can get good, healthy fats from. And then maybe I'll come in on the bad fats a little bit.
Okay, so obviously your supplements, your essential fatty acid supplements, but as far as diet goes, you get it from flaxseed oil, we've already discussed it, avocados, raw nuts.
Raw nuts. Raw nuts is big. I don't think people realize it.
Raw nuts is big. We maintain almonds, raw almonds, pretty much through our entire season. And then even some natural peanut butters. We have to be kind of careful with peanut butters, but natural peanut butters still have healthy fats. Extra virgin olive oil, as long as it's not cooked. And did I say flaxseed oil?
Yeah, you said flaxseed.
Avocado.
Yeah.
Where else?
Avocados.
I think
raw nuts. Name some other things.
Salmon.
And salmon's huge. Yeah, that's a huge one for you. Is we really incorporate salmon quite often, especially during the season as much as we can because of those essential fatty acids there. And
no more than about 2 to 3 times a week, but
max.
Yeah.
And not that much in the off season. But when we're really cutting calories, it's important. We found that just kind of trial and error.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are some of the good fats, and then the bad fats obviously are the obvious ones with the fried, right? If it's fried, cut it out. Just quit it. Gone. Cut the fried out. But look at labels, because that's where a lot of these hidden fats come from. And we've had a few of our one-on-one clients lately that we worked with that didn't realize that they were getting a lot of fats from fats that are called hydrogenated fats. And we get in the chemistry of that, but the bottom line is you take a liquid fat and you slam it with hydrogen and process it, to make it so that it can be put into a powder or made solid. And it's extremely bad for you. You're taking a fat and just making it rancid to begin with. And you'll see that on a lot of labels of bars, mixes of any types of powders, a lot of cereals. And luckily, there are alternatives.
Yeah, there are for sure. And I think understanding the way you use fat, the way you use oils, is really important too, because some people will just dump oil in a pan and then cook what they need to cook. Well, measuring and making sure you're not using a huge amount is super important as well. The amount is sometimes just as important. And I'm not talking about deep fried. That's out of the question. We don't do deep fried. But I'm talking about when you're cooking something in a pan.
Can I tell a little story?
Oh, I would love a story.
So back at the Phoenix Suns, obviously my job was the nutrition, and one time the owner says, hey, you need to go over to this restaurant near the arena, and we really shouldn't allow the athletes to go there. I'm like, what? You can find something healthy at almost every restaurant. I'm like, what is this? Go to Grandma White's. Love Grandma White. She passed away, but great lady. But I went there, and most of the athletes really liked the place, and I'm like, what's your specialty? And she's like, well, our triple fried chicken. And I'm like, what? And
it sounds delicious.
She'd fry the chicken, get it out, let a little bit get off of the oil, on the paper, and put it back in, fried again, out, and fried again, and then put more seasonings on each time. And I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder we were having this huge problem with cholesterol and triglycerides, LDL with a lot of the players. And so we did. We banned Grandma White's, but actually the owner actually helped her out. But so the key is, look, fried is the devil. That is the problem.
And it's not just the fried food and the damage that it causes, like high cholesterol. It's also the fact that it makes it harder for your body to use the good fats that you do eat.
Absolutely. That's critical. So from the nutrition side of it, it goes along with everything we're trying to accomplish. We talked about different conditions and different goals and that. We're going to come back to pretty much the same eating plan. There's a few exceptions that you might have with certain conditions. You have to eat a certain way, but it's whole food based, meaning try to stay away from the processed foods, ultra processed foods. We're going to go do a deep dive in a podcast on that and to the history of it. But the bottom line is processing of foods starts to cause the damage, and we want to stick with the whole foods as possible. What does that mean? Fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, berries, raw nuts. really have that be a part of your diet. And you're going to find that for a lot of people, it's not a part of their diet at all. And just adding a little bit back is going to make a difference. And then you can start in levels, work your way up, and just consuming more of them each day. One of the best things we recommend to people right off the bat is have one salad a day. And that's new for a lot of people, but one salad a day. Get back to the hormones. Guys, you're putting the good oil on there, right? So vinegar and oil, use extra virgin olive oil or just a healthy raw oil. Avocado oil, you're already making a great choice and doing a lot to help. And the vegetables actually, the cruciferous vegetables, they actually have this thing called DIM, which, not going too deep, it actually helps with estrogen and being able to keep it under control, especially for people that have higher estrogen levels today, which most of the time high estrogen levels that are out of balance come from processed food. And so that's something we'll want to look at.
Okay. We should probably move on from food.
Okay. Well, that's our favorite subject. Let's go to exercise real quick, and then I'm going to hit up a little research at the end about why so many people are dying today. So hold on if you're watching this podcast. There's a reason that so many athletes and people in the world are dying just out of the blue that we haven't seen ever in history. And we're going to get to that, and it has a lot to do with hormones. So let's go to exercise. I think that a lot of people realize that exercise would help with hormone balance, but I'm not sure they understand how much. There are some studies done out of Penn State showing that exercise itself, and we're talking, let's just stick with the main exercise that everyone should do, and that is strength training. And yes, you should do strength training and aerobics, but strength training, I think, is the thing that we've pride ourselves in to help people understand, look, this needs to be in your life, especially as you get older, and we're talking about hormones.
100%.
And so strength training helps tremendously with the balance of hormones. It'll boost your testosterone levels to the levels they should be at. It'll help with endorphins and serotonin and dopamine and the balance, and it's critical for us to strength train, because once our muscles, we tell our body our muscles want to be strong, that we're working them, right? The body is this phenomenal machine. The use it, or you lose it thing is so true. And we want to show the body we're using those muscles. But the second we do, the body turns on the processes of understanding the importance of growth hormone, estrogen, testosterone, and it'll work to balance them, because only when it's in the proper balance of testosterone and estrogen and growth hormone that our muscles will recover and become stronger, burn more calories, produce all those nice chemicals, the happy chemicals, the endorphins and that in it.
Okay, so for men and women, essential fatty acids are essential for hormones, right?
Got it.
Okay, and for both men and women, exercise, strength training is essential to have proper hormone balance.
Absolutely. So how often should we strength train?
How often?
So we'd like to say a minimum of 2 times a week, but man, we're pushing it, because really it should be 3 to 4 times a week strength training. And so I'd like to say minimum 3, truly, guys especially. But if you could get that 4th one in, that's great. But if you have 3 be non-negotiable, then that's really the way to go. So how do people with a busy schedule, let's go to women real quick. How do they fit in an extra 45 minutes to an hour 3 times a week to strength train?
Well, I'll be honest, I've met very few people, men or women, who actually do not have the time. And I know there's some of them out there that really, from the time they wake up until the time they go to bed, they are productive and doing things all day long. The truth of the matter is there's plenty of things that we can cut out in the day to exercise that will then give us more energy through the day to do other things. But for myself in general, the thing that I do is that I have a time, and I set the time, right? So having the time when you exercise is essential. It's a non-negotiable. This is my time that I exercise, and that's going to be different for everyone. There's small differences in the studies that you've read, correct, about maybe morning being better, but they're so. The point is, whatever you can do consistently, that's your time.
That's what the research shows. Whatever you can do consistently, whatever time it is, that's one that will be most beneficial to you.
Whether it's AM or PM, right?
Absolutely.
So the time, it's a non-negotiable. Also, I think it really helps to have an accountability partner, somebody that is going to hold you accountable. That can be a coach, that can be a spouse, that can be a friend, that can be a lifting partner, whomever it is. Find somebody that can get on board with your goals and keep you held accountable. The other thing is that when I wake up, I put my workout clothes on. right? And that's for my morning cardio. But for those of us that are going to do our lifting in the morning, you wake up, you put your workout clothes on, you put your shoes on, and that way you're already training your brain, hey, this is what's going to happen next.
Absolutely. I think that's really key. And so the timing is really important. I love the non-negotiable. And what non-negotiable really means, so let's say, Hilary, we have this time that most days we train at about 5 o'clock, or Hilary trains. I work to train her at 5 o'clock. And I would say the high majority of the time that happens. And that's what we call our non-negotiable. But really what it means is that's our time. And once in a while, we will have to do it earlier because we look at the day, or do it later. If something comes up with one of our kids or a grandchild or something like that, guess what? They're first. But we'll think about it, and we'll make sure we do get it done.
Just plan. So if something is coming up in that non-negotiable hour or time, then it's like, okay, so this is happening, so now we're going to do it at 6 o'clock. Or, oh, now we have to do it in the morning. Whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
Just, it needs to be planned.
Get it done. And if you miss once, just once, right? I mean, that's the key, is never miss twice.
Yeah, and I would say we've pretty much lived by that for a long time. There's been plenty of times where traveling has happened, and, you know, we've let the exhaustion get to us and found it out. But sure as heck, the next morning, it was a non-negotiable. So
exercise tips: strength training at least 3 times a week, 45 minutes to an hour. What type of strength training? To keep it simple, the research shows that the best strength training program to be able to help with the hormones is a full body program. So that means you're going to go in and you're going to work each body part. Okay, so we're going to do squats for the legs, we're going to do chest bench press, we're going to do back, shoulders. So it's a full body routine.
Can I ask you, does that mean, is that something that somebody can get a full body routine within a few days, or are you saying each time they work out they need to do a full body?
So the research shows that the best for hormones, for just this conversation, full body when you work out. Okay. And so does that mean if you don't have time to do it and you really like get into it, like in Hilary's case, you know, a lot of times she'll spend an hour on 1 or 2 body parts. Well, for her sport, it's a different body part each day, and she still works fine with the hormones. But we're talking like ultimates, kind of like back to that thing about, you know, what time of day, that time of situation. So full body. And if you don't know what to do, go to a local gym and just ask. You sign up, say, hey, for me signing up, will someone show me a basic circuit? It's called circuit training.
Or look it up online. Look it up online, and then you can get to the gym. And just a little tip here. We've been training for years. Doug is older than me, so he's been training even longer. But the second we walk into a new gym, we do a roundabout. And we go around and we look at all the machines. And I don't care how long and how many times you've been in a gym, and gyms all across the world, there will be a machine that you're like, what the heck is that? And how do I... There is no shame in walking up to a machine and looking at the picture and the instructions on it and figuring out how it works. There is no shame in that. We do it constantly.
Yeah. So, and this is our profession.
Yeah.
We did it the other day in Boise, right?
Exactly.
We have a cool little machine. I'm checking it out and reading it and playing with it and getting the hang of it. And someone was there, like, hey, yeah, this is cool. This is how I use it. And it was really neat.
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of the times, I know I'm taking too long on this, but I know a lot of people that will stay away from a gym because they're fearful of, I don't know, I don't understand machines, I don't know machines. Trust me, everyone walks around and everyone looks to figure out how they work, and nobody cares what everybody's doing.
Absolutely. So with exercise, the other thing is we want to make sure you understand you can do it without spending a lot of money, and that's what we're kind of pointing out. But do a circuit training, look at online, do things like that. But the bottom line is, real quick, the bottom line is, highly recommend, we both are really big on this. If you've never had a personal trainer before, hire a personal trainer for 6 months, okay? 6 months of your life, have a personal trainer, let them show you, teach you, set up exercise programs, understand the difference in compound movements and isolation movements and when to do what, and just poof, it'll open up your mind for the rest of your life. And some people keep a trainer forever, and others, that's just what they need. And so for us, we always try to work to educate our clients to make sure they understand, so then they can take that with them, and no matter where they're at, and be able to make programs on their own. But if you haven't done it, highly recommend.
Okay, and what about somebody that is at their house and they do not have weights?
Oh, same thing. Again, Google it or have a trainer. An online trainer's job is to give you a program when you're going on the road. What do I do in the hotel room? What can I do? I don't want to go to a gym. I just want to work out at home. I'd say, what, 70% of our clients, our one-on-one clients,
Mm,
work out at home,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
At least.
For sure.
I'm trying to think, it might be higher than that. So you can always do it. And we've gone into homes where they've had a couple dumbbells and a little bench to full-blown, like our house having, full-blown gym in the house. Doesn't matter. Just don't let the thought of there's not enough here, I want to work out at home, I don't know what to do type thing stop you. 3 times a week, strength training, hormone balance, game
Okay,
changer.
so what about the things that are essential for after you've worked out, like nutrient-wise, to make sure hormones are balanced? So if we're talking about the importance of training and recovery for that training in hormone, speech,
Yeah.
for men and women, what's most important?
Okay, great new research study out for women showing that protein before the workout is even more important than a man for hormone balance. So women before the workout, 20 to 25 grams of protein, get a good whey, collagen protein or a good plant-based protein. Super important. That's some new stuff that's out. It's really, really cool. But that afterwards, and there's a lot of controversy on this for decades and decades and decades, and it drives me nuts because we talk about the 1 hour anabolic window. So even if we really got deep into the science, which we won't right now, the bottom line, it's important for you to have some nutrients in your body within an hour after working out. And so after your workout, I really like recommending a shake.
Okay.
A shake, and then what do you do with
What do
that
you mean a
shake?
shake?
So like a protein shake, okay? But with that shake, you want to add in some of those essential fats if they're not in that protein shake. If you have a powder and you look at the fats, if they don't have some essential fats in there, you need to add in. That's where you put that teaspoon of flaxseed oil in there, right? Something like that, super critical, and that's the key because you want to give the body those fatty acids you just worked out. The body wants to balance the hormones, wants to balance testosterone and estrogen, and you want to give it that, and the body can utilize it. It works wonders for some people. Exercising consistently, full body, and just making sure the essential fats are there, that's all they need when they've had years and years and years of imbalance and they thought, I need to be on the prescriptions and stuff.
Okay.
So let's move on to the end. So as we get to the end, we went through focused, intense thought, right? The why type thing of keeping hormones balanced and what it can do for you, the nutrition side of it. Fats is a big issue, the exercise. And before we get into supplements, the SS of fitness, I want to really bring up the importance here of why we're so, I'll say against, but why we want to educate people so much on why HRT, hormone replacement therapy, testosterone replacement therapy, all of these things really are not the way to go unless you have to. And we're talking about the high majority of people that jump to them and they don't have to. Okay? They just think that's just the way it is. Right? And when a lot of times you'll go to your doctor, you'll go to these anti-aging clinics or these places that is recommended to you, and that's the first thing they say is, oh yeah, of course, you're in your 30s or 40s, let's get you going. We put you on testosterone therapy and all this, and we can even do it naturally, and we'll give you.
That's what I want to jump in, because I've had so many women say, no, I'm on pellets. I am natural. I do the pellets. Okay, so give it to us.
Okay, so we both have this experience, and I'm going to tell you what the deal is, and then we're going to talk about this little story for a quick second. And that is that testosterone replacement therapy, whether you get the injection in the butt type thing is, testosterone cypionate, straight testosterone, the synthetic form, or you get people saying, oh, here's the natural form, let's do the pellets, right, the soy-based and all that. It's still testosterone. It's still taking over your body's own natural ability to make testosterone and to balance the body, and your body will become dependent on it.
So your biggest issue with hormone replacement therapy is what? That once you start taking it from an outside source, the body then says, boop, I'm done. I no longer have to produce.
Absolutely. Our body's so amazing. Our body only puts out effort when it needs to. Mm-hmm. And if all of a sudden we're saying, hey, here's this testosterone, right, whether it's pellets or injections or creams or whatever it is, and it's like, we don't have to make this anymore because it takes a lot of work. Boom, let's go do something else. And the body will switch to do something else. And that's where it makes it tough, because every type of testosterone therapy, every type, has side effects. Mm-hmm. And one of them being the body, like you said, will quit making it on its own. You're like, well, what's the big deal? Well, what's the big deal? You're going to have to take it the rest of your life, for the most part, unless you understand how to balance it back, and we're going to help you with that. But the other thing is, man, your prostate enlarges, right? Your risk of heart attack goes up, and let's hit the elephant in the room. This has been my big deal for the last year, right? And I am definitely on this warpath, and it's people are dying. And this is super serious. It's people that you would think are healthy are dying. We're talking athletes at an extreme level that we've never seen before. And there's a little argument of what the numbers are, that it was like 30 a year for decades, and now it's been like 1,000 a year last 2 years, and then people will fact check it and stuff. It's dang close to that, by the way. But the fact is people are dying, and it's sudden death that we haven't seen before. And here is my opinion, right, as to why it's happening, and I'll give you the data behind it. And my opinion is that when we look at the blood work, and we have a good friend of ours that comes from the mortician world too, and they've seen the blood work, and people have passed away, and we see it before they pass away. And when we see this issue happening, like what's changed that could be causing this, it comes down to this. In the blood, when you do blood work, there's something called hematocrit, okay? And it's the red blood cell count in the body. And if your hematocrit or your red blood cells are high, think about blood going through your veins and the red blood cells, and they go along, and right, it's not rush hour, everything's fine, everything flows, the heart doesn't have to work as hard. But when our red blood cell count is high, and they're all bunched in, it's rush hour, it causes congestion. And a lot of times that's what causes these heart attacks, and people are dying. And it's always been around, it's always been an issue, but
so
with
testosterone, your hematocrit increases.
Synthetic testosterone.
Okay.
So, and synthetic meaning pellets or injections, anything given from the outside world. If you put testosterone in the body, okay, no matter how it's made, then it's going to raise your hematocrit, and we see that every single time. And it's one of the first things I look at, and working over years in the NBA and working with the International Olympic Committee, when we're trying to find out whether an athlete is on steroids or not, or taking testosterone and illegal hormones. First thing I've looked at always is I take a look at testosterone, I take a look at hematocrit, and if the hematocrit is high, and it's not every single time, but for the majority of the time, we're like, let's go a little bit deeper here, run the UA and all that to find out. But
okay, so hematocrit increases.
It increases, and it increases from testosterone.
Right, but people have been taking testosterone for a while, so what else increases hematocrit?
Great point. So people have been taking testosterone therapy for decades, right? What's caused it lately?
Yeah,
is that there's other things that are happening in the world that's causing your red blood cell count, your hematocrit, to go up, and some things you can't control. The big COVID factor, right? And that's been around, that increases it. Everyone agrees. Both sides of the of the tracks agree that COVID raises your hematocrit, your red blood cell count. We also know that the vaccine raises your red blood cell count. That's why Johnson & Johnson was pulled. So this, again, it doesn't matter which side of the track you're on, it raises your hematocrit. And we also know that these heavy processing of foods is finally coming to a head, and really just all of them together, not just one little thing's causing it. So we have this problem that if you already have high hematocrit.
So if I'm somebody that is a generally healthy, let's say, man, because I think it's more of an issue there really with a lot of these athletes, and I'm on testosterone therapy, but I work out consistently, I have a decent diet, but I do take synthetic testosterone, so my hematocrit is already high, right? But then all of a sudden I get COVID.
Then that could be the deciding factor, right? That you have too many red blood cells, and all of a sudden that shocked the system, and that's how come you die. So what is the answer to that, right? Sometimes we can't fix getting a virus a lot of times and things that's going on. So what do we do? Well, what we do is we control our red blood cell count while we can, so that if we do get something, we do get the virus or different things like that, and it raises, we don't die from it. So you can control your hematocrit on a daily level, and part of that is not being on testosterone therapy if you can help it, right? I know there's a few out there, and we're going to get a little hate mail from it, but that's okay, you can bring it. Is that the studies are very specific on this. Harvard Health Publishing, Harvard Medical School, doctors watch out for high red blood cell counts, which increase the risk of clotting when you're on testosterone therapy. They have higher risk of cardiovascular problems like heart attacks, strokes, deaths from heart disease. I just read that straight from the Harvard medical school. So this isn't like something we're making up, right? High red blood cell counts, which increase the risk of clotting, is what happens when we're on these testosterone replacement therapy. Whether you call them natural or not, you're putting testosterone into the body, and that's causing a problem. And real quick, when one of the contests, Hilary doesn't like saying she won it because there's a few times where she's won. One time it was at Miss USA, and a different one like that where she took second, but the person that took first ended up testing dirty, right? They're riding dirty. They were basically, you like that, don't you?
Gosh,
So they
no,
basically were taking testosterone or other things, right? But one of them was a different thing. And they got caught, so really she did win. And but the thing is that one of these people was like, no, I'm just on pellets.
Right.
And they lost a national, right? It was a national meet bodybuilding show. They won it, but then it was taken away because they thought, because their doctor had told them, oh, this is the natural form.
So how can, what makes it so that a doctor can say, no, this is the natural form of testosterone?
Well,
what is that mindset?
Instead of injecting testosterone cypionate or that, they're making the testosterone from plants or other things, soy and all that, and then they're putting it in a pellet that's either soy-based or something in the body. And so they say it's natural, but understand it's the same structure as testosterone, and you're synthetically, or you're taking and putting it in the body. You're not giving the body nutrients, and that's what you should be doing, that the body can take those nutrients and make testosterone on its own. You're putting testosterone in. So if you're putting testosterone in the body, any form, it's raising testosterone. Every Olympic athlete in the world will test positive for that. That's what causes these hematocrit problems, is what causes dependency on it. And I know we got to finish up. It's a little bit long one today, but I'll talk about supplements. But I'd say half of our clients, of our concierge clients, one of the main reasons they came to us is they've been on testosterone therapy, men or women, and wanted off. Like, they're like, crap, I didn't realize, I was told it was what I'm supposed to do. It's anti-aging, it's good for you. And then when they've seen the research or someone else told them that they just weren't feeling right, and that's usually what it is.
Yeah, usually it's that they don't feel right. It's usually, to be honest, it's usually that at the beginning of hormone therapy, it was like, this is the way, this is amazing. But then things get thrown off real easy, and they just feel worse than ever.
And they innately know what's wrong.
Yeah.
At first they're like, okay, I got put on it, it's good, and I was told, and everything's great, and they feel great, like you said. And then things start going wrong, and deep down, they're like, crap, I actually know I should.
Just something just doesn't feel, not that it's necessarily wrong, but I think they feel like there is a better way.
Yeah.
There's a better way.
That's a nice way to put it.
I know.
That's wrong. Okay, so anyways, and so basically, that's the problem with it. And we do work with people, as mentioned, and have had tremendous success, but it takes a while with some, right?
It takes a while.
Because we've got to get the body to where it's like, okay, we need to make this. We don't want to make it anymore, and it fights back a little bit. But if we get everything balanced, and it takes everything, mindset, nutrition, exercise, specific supplementation. Once in a while, we have to throw a little peptide in. Whatever it is, you can do it naturally. There hasn't been anyone we haven't had success yet with, but it takes a while for some. So what about supplementation? And that is a big factor. So you can stay up late at night and you see all these things on TV, and these ex-football players are recommend this, and go to GNC and here's these nutrients to boost testosterone. And they're like, there's patents and there's studies and all that. There are studies showing that certain nutrients boost testosterone. Absolutely.
What are they?
What are the nutrients?
Yep.
Or the studies?
Oh, geez, don't get into the studies. Just tell us the nutrients.
Okay. So, nutrients, like simple ones, vitamin D, zinc, so everyone knows those, but there's some herbs that are awesome sauce, right? And the most famous one's been around for decades. It's called Tribulus terrestris. This herb, phenomenal herb, research is strong on it. Another one, Uricoma longifolia, that's a big long word, but there's some herbs that people in the know.
Yeah, for sure. And the difference between, because somebody listening to this might say, well, what is the difference if I'm just going to synthetically put the testosterone in, or if I'm actually taking an herb to boost my testosterone, then what's the stinking difference? Well, the difference is what?
Well, the difference is you're giving the body the tools to make testosterone, so the body will make testosterone on its own, the right amounts, and it's not going to put excess pressure, because one thing we didn't mention, here's the thing about hormones. If you don't have enough, it's bad, right? You're out of whack, you feel out of whack. You have too much, it's bad.
Right.
This is about balance, and you
There
need
we
to be
go.
dialed. You've got to have your hormones dialed in. And the best way to do it is to quit telling the body and forcing it to do something. Like if you put in testosterone, it's going to raise testosterone.
Right.
If you give the body tribulus terrestris or some of these herbs, vitamin D, zinc, if it doesn't need to raise the testosterone anymore, it has now the tools to make as much as it needs, so you get the deficiency. But if it doesn't need more, it'll use those nutrients somewhere else. And that's the difference maker. Quit trying to decide for the body what it should do. Let the body decide on its own. So supply the nutrients to make it. Quit putting the synthetics in. And so what about these herbs? And for those that are real deep into this world, with it, they're like, yeah, tribulus terrestris, we get it, the Bulgarian type from Bulgaria. And you're right, Bulgarian tribulus terrestris is the best. Why? And that's a point I want to make about supplements, is that it's not the herb itself that helps provide the nutrients for the body to make testosterone, estrogen balance, and all that. It's a little thing called phytonutrients that's within those herbs. And if the herb isn't broken down and digested, then the body's not able to utilize those specific nutrients within the herb to be able to make testosterone, estrogen, balance those levels of hormones in the body. And so some places, depending on where they're cultivated or raised, have higher amounts of those phytonutrients. But it comes down to the digestion. That's why I'm really big on taking enzymes anytime you take some of these herbs. So if you buy these herbs out there today, you get vitamin D and zinc, and you buy the herbs, tribulus terrestris and uracil, take enzymes with it.
Yes, for sure. And we're not just talking about testosterone, though, for women especially. For men, too. We're talking about balancing all of the different hormones. So what other herbs are important for, estrogen balance? And give us some of that.
Right. And so really with estrogen balance or fatty acids, a lot of the herbs have higher amounts of fatty acids in them. A lot of them have been proven over the years to help balance hormones. Some of them have funny names like chaste tree, things like that, rhodiola. There's a good combination of herbs for women that helps them balance. Why do we make a product called Opti-Females? We put them all in there so that the body can use those herbs to help balance as needed. Just giving the body the nutrients.
Right.
And so there is a bunch of herbs that help with that. There's the herbs that help with testosterone. The bottom line is we, because of our profession, we do make Opti-T, we make Opti-Female. That basically Opti-T is for anyone to boost testosterone in the female. But I don't want to really make this a commercial for that. It's that there are herbs that help give the body the nutrients, the phytonutrients in there that the body then can use to make testosterone, estrogen, most importantly, balance those two, not be too high, not too low. And when you have everything dialed, oh my gosh, clarity of mind, focus, energy, enjoying life, being more present, it's such a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That zest for life we were talking about comes back.
The zest for life. And so let's kind of recap. This has been a little bit longer. I think that one other thing I want to talk about is elevated testosterone. It just doesn't raise hematocrit. But there was a study out of Yale that showed that elevated testosterone, men and women, kills nerve cells. And there's another study that was done showing that actually can be one of the cognitive factors for Alzheimer's. It was an Alzheimer's research study. And also dementia. So what's happening is if your testosterone levels, men or women, are too high, we're killing off the nerves, it's putting pressure on it, and it's killing off the nerves. That's leading to a lot of the cognitive decline and this brain fog, and these things are happening. And that's what a lot of people are feeling that are on these testosterone therapies. So I guarantee we're going to get a lot of hate mail and things for people that listen to this that are really big, because the pharmaceutical world really, pharmaceutical companies and a lot of the food companies run a lot of the media and what we're told, and they'll fight back when they hear it. But just do the research.
Yeah.
As we're quoting from the research, bottom line is obey the laws of nature, understand fitness, focus intense thought, get educated on this, the nutrition, fatty acids today. We're talking about exercise consistently, strength training at least 3 times a week, supplementation. There are supplements that help. You need supplements many times, especially if you've been on therapies, to get the body the right nutrients to come back.
And I'm going to remind you, at the very beginning of this, you had talked about how testosterone levels were at the lowest that they've been in years. So in history. So in your opinion, where is a lot of that coming from?
Well, I think it's a combination, and the testosterone being in the dumps today is a combination of not having enough healthy fats in our diet, I think that it's a combination of the stresses that are happening to people today, and not being able to relax, to meditate, to do things like that.
Too much distraction?
Distraction. And the biggest thing that I saw 2 studies lately on this, it's this combination of everything that's out there, right? The chemicals in the plastics,
Okay.
right? The processed foods, the food dyes, all of these things that you're like, okay, come on, now you're like getting into nitty gritty. Well, the problem is it's so many different things with the plastics, the food dyes, the processing of
And
foods.
what about the hormones
And
within meats and that kind of thing, milks and...
that's the huge factor, and that's another part of it is that most of the meat that we consume today has been injected with hormones. And we're giving the body these sometimes hardcore hormones that are really disrupting. They're hormone disruptors, and that's where a lot of things in the plastics in the meats come from today. And we're also loading them with antibiotics is causing a factor to help lower testosterone in the body. So think about what you just said. I mean, we're talking about from the food sources that we're having, especially if we eat meat that's not organic, the plastics, the food dyes, a lot of these things that are only in America. We're talking a lot of these things with the food dyes, and we'll go into it in detail in another podcast, is allowed in America, but no other country, because it's that combo. So it's probably not that one thing. It might not just be food dye for the red or the blue, but it might be that and the plastics and the steroid or the testosterone and the hormones that are in the meats and the lifestyle. It's all of it combined. That's why we just need to get back to nature, get back to basics. And as we clean up our diet, more whole foods, take in the right nutrients, a lot of times the body, it wants to be balanced.
Right.
And it can do it.
Sweet. This is good. This is one of my favorites, but I have a feeling that I'll say that alone.
Yeah, that's all right. So let's finish up. Look, what brought this up, honestly, was this passion that we've had, that we've seen friends, people that we know, at least, that a lot of athletes that have passed away due to having high hematocrit, red blood cell count, side effects from, let's not even say steroids, testosterone therapies, hormone replacement therapies. And it's a bigger problem now than it's ever been.
Yeah, and it's not just those who have passed away. It's also those that we come in contact with, our friends, our mothers, our sisters, that say, I've tried this route and I feel worse than ever. Why do I feel worse than ever? And I think that's what makes me passionately committed to this, is that there is another and better way.
Absolutely. And just so that people can have reference, I'm slightly older chronologically than Hilary, but I'm in my 50s, up there a little bit higher 50s, and quit. But I work to keep my testosterone 700 or above.
Yeah.
Pretty much ever since I've been measuring it for decades, and without ever taking anything synthetic or testosterone and that. And sometimes it'll drop, hit 600-ish type thing, and they're like, oh, what do I need to do? And there's usually something in the lifestyle, right? Maybe even need to increase my strength training a little bit, and then it comes right back up naturally. Hilary has great testosterone levels and works to keep them, obviously for her sport, right, in the 40s, to be able to compete against everyone else and build muscle. They have to be on, and the fact that she has been able to keep it with her cycle, we know what needs to happen. It's not just based on the research. We're talking about knowing, living this, making adjustments. And so if you have questions, reach out. We'd be glad to help you to understand the importance. Nice nails, by the way.
Oh, thanks, babe. Hey, wait, though. Tell me the range, the proper range for a man's testosterone level.
Oh, okay. So, and it's so funny, they're like, well, the age, depending on age, BS. Look, guys, 5 to 700, you need to be 5 to 700. And if you can, a lot of times younger can, get it up 800-900 range. That's awesome. Above 1,000, you're causing damage. Sorry, it's causing damage, and usually won't see that naturally. I think we've seen one natural athlete that pushed that limit in the 20s, right?
Yeah.
Type thing. So 5 to 700 for how long? Forever. Your entire life. Talk to me when I'm 90. All right. Let's not.
Gosh. And women. Yeah, it's a vastly different number from men to women. But what is the proper range for?
Yeah,
women?
and it is different. So don't take this like women need to have very little. It's a whole different calculation. But it's we like to say in the 20s. Mm-hmm. Let's just keep it simple in the 20s. If women can get 30, 40, actually women can get up to 80, 90 different times, and but usually genetic that is there, and things have to be perfect. But if you can be in your 20s, even 30s, that's a good range.
Okay, because we've gotten blood work back for women, and it's been 3.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And been able to get up quickly.
For
and
sure.
usually, again, sometimes you need specialists. Sometimes there's a
Absolutely.
need for the drugs and things like that. We're just talking about the majority of the population that jump there just because they're told, oh, you're not feeling good, or you're losing a little bit, you should go on, hormone replacement therapy or TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, and that. And if that's the case, there is a healthier way.
Love it. Thanks
Miss
for
Natural Olympia,
joining us and the Formulator.
be fit.